Musical Express. He said, the real reason I wouldn't wish to live in England, it shouldn't be construed it's the immigration explosion. But on the other hand, he does say, which seems a bit at odds with this, that the higher the influx of people into England, the more the identity disappears. What about the question of the British identity changing in the way that it hasn't, as he says, in Germany or Sweden?
We've had waves of immigration coming into this country for centuries. You know, the idea that the British identity is so fragile that we can't cope with people coming in is absolute nonsense. I mean, I'm not saying that if you have waves of immigration without planning for it, it doesn't cause tensions. It does cause tension, but it's not about immigration that's the problem. It's about failure to plan for it. Right. You know, we have a local government system which is not flexible enough to deal with rises in population, and we don't have a good statistical service that allows us to know how many people are living in an area. If we solve a lot of those problems, we deal with many of the tensions.
Okay, let me bring in the woman over there on the far right, and then I'll... Yes, you, madam.
I think if Morrissey wants to know about what the British identity is, he should come to Yorkshire, because he'd be shown exactly what the British identity is in this county.
Oh, what would it be?
Well, I don't know about that.
What would it be?
I speak as a foreigner. I'm not a Yorkshire person. I've lived here for 3 years, and I find it very friendly, very welcoming, very supportive.
And very identifiable.
And very identifiable.
And what do you think?
Just returning to what Morrissey said,
yes.
I think you know exactly where you are when you're in England. I think you know you're in a multicultural society, and that is our British identity, and I think it's one that we can be very, very proud of.
Okay. And the woman right in the back there, very back. Yes, I respect you,
I'm concerned regarding the hemorrhaging of third world countries. If the health service is taking their workers, they train them.
Well, that's a slightly different point. I take the point, but I think we've only got a few minutes. We must stick with the key question. Carolyn Friend.
Well, I think it's always a little disconcerting when people who've spent a long time living out of the country, and I think before Rome he was living in America, come back and maybe have a view of what it was like when they left and make these sort of comments. The fact of the matter is why isn't Britain like somewhere like Sweden or some of these other countries? It's partly because we have got a history of hundreds of years of people coming to settle here. It is part of the legacy of the empire which became the Commonwealth, and I actually think when all's said and done it enriches our society rather than diminishes it.
It was in 2001 at the election that your friend William Hague said vote Labour and Britain will become a foreign country, wasn't it? What did he mean by that? Did he mean something along these lines?
No, I don't think it was about immigration. It was really about who makes our law, and I think that was a reference to Europe. But we can pass that to one side for a moment. Otherwise, we'll get another 10 minutes from Nigel. There's a very, very serious question in this about British identity, because it can really get people enraged. And I think the debate about immigration has become rather stale. My view is that...
Why do you think it's become stale?
Well, I'm about to tell you. Is that whether or not you have immigration, we and many parts of the world are going through massive social change. And it's the duty of any politician to accept their country as it is, love it, and bind it into one. And there are various ways of doing that. First of all, you've got to look to the future and not look to the past and wish that somehow the clock could be turned back. You've got to look at all the ingredients and try and enrich the country by the way you govern it. And one way you can help is to make sure that we can all speak the same language. Otherwise, that massive divisions and ghettos can arise and continue. We must promote, and we've discussed it a lot tonight, the principles of tolerance, which then lead to good manners, which make all sorts of different people happy to live with each other.
But do you
and the other, can I have one more ingredient, if I may? One more ingredient. The third leg of my stool is, I think, the union of the United Kingdom is a crucial part of the identity of the country in which we reside.
But do you think that it is distinct from Germany, France, or Italy in terms of retaining its national character? Do you think Britain is changing, its identity is changing? You have to give a very brief answer because we're coming to the end.
Yes, and we're ahead of them and much better.
Right. Paul Miners.
I think national identities evolve and they change. They're not locked in some time in the past. They change over time, and the most visible and evidential piece of fact I can refer you to there is the National Survey of Social Attitudes, which has measured British attitudes over important areas of social policy, relationships, and values over the last 50 or 60 years, and it shows a very, very significant change. Society changes, identity changes. That's one of the great features of Britain. We're not stuck in the past. We move forward, and we're enriched and made more successful and a more interesting society by being able to welcome into our community those who come from other countries.
Okay. Very brief point. Last point from you, and a very brief one it has to be, sir. Yes, at the back there.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's slightly ridiculous when people like Morrissey come on and say that Britain's losing its national identity without actually saying what it is, because it just seems like...
I think it's language, isn't it? It's language. I was in Bromley High Street.
Well, I just think it's slightly dubious.
Don't start him off again.
You've been sitting quiet since the beginning when you did speak. Very briefly, if you would.
Morrissey made an opinion, and that's all it was. But in this country, if you've got an opinion, it's down to freedom of speech again. If you make the wrong statement, you get cast as a racialist.
Okay. Well, we must stop. We must stop. If you want to continue this debate about any of the things we've been talking about, Gordon Brown and the rest, switch now to News 24, and Question Time Extra will be discussing the comments you've put forward during the programme from home with Chris Eakin and his guests, or you can stay with BBC One to see This Week. If you want to watch Question Time again, a shortened version, Saturday, 8:30 in the evening on News 24. My thanks to all of you on the panel, to those of you who came here to York to take part. It's Cambridge next week. If you want to be in the audience at Cambridge, 0871 626 9988, or go to our website, bbc.co.uk/question time. You can also say there what you'd like to hear us talking about when we're in Cambridge. From all of us here in this wonderful Air Museum in York, good night.